Some people hate Gen 2, some people love Gen 2. I'm in the loving camp. I absolutely love Gen 2. I know I'm covering up some of the slide right here. Trust me, the other slides are cropped well enough that that's not going to be a problem. Gen 2 has my favorite Pokemon overall. There's only 100 of them, but I love them. Absolutely love Gen 2. I love the music, I love the environment, I love the Pokemon. Alright, number 10. I know this is a bit of a hot take. I know a lot of people hate the guy, but I love Shuckle. Look at him. He's a goofy guy. He's like a little worm guy in his red shell. Now the first thing I love about him, very polarizing stats. A lot of early gen Pokemon, they had very jack of all trades stats, very boring, like 85s across the board, that kind of boring crap. Look at Glalie, 80s across the board, boring. Shuckle puts it all in the defenses, 230 in a stat. That's crazy. This doesn't even get like matched by today's standards. It's pretty outrageous. Now they were kind of dumb because what they did is they gave him 20 HP. What's with those high defenses? And his HP is still ass. I guess they didn't want to make that base stat total too high. It's at like 505. Now, last video I made with the top 10 Gen 5 Pokemon, I put several dex entries up. I ain't doing that no more. I'm just putting one that I find the most interesting. I put at the bottom here that he makes delicious juices. That's awesome. I would love a pet Shuckle. He just goes into a shell, makes me some delicious juices. Now these other pictures I got here, it's of Stealth Rock and Sticky Web, because that's all this guy does. He uses his highest defenses and his ability Sturdy to just get up hazards. He's a hazard bot. But you know what? That's usually on very offensive teams. We like offensive teams. You go, Shuckle. We love Shuckle down here. Alright, next. We got Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh is actually one of my favorite cover art legendaries ever. It's very fantastic. It's colorful. I like its rainbow wings. I like the whole vibe it's got going on. It's very peaceful. A lot of these cover art legendaries are pretty violent and crazy. Nah, Ho-Oh's pretty chill. Ho-Oh's actually considered like a really good Pokemon. You want to be seeing Ho-Oh, as with this Pokédex entry down here. If you see Ho-Oh, you get eternal happiness. That's pretty sick. So I guess Ash gets eternal happiness. People have their own little theories and whatnot. Is he 10 forever because of that? I don't know. But look at Ho-Oh's stats. They're outrageous. It's very tanky with that high HP, the high special defense, the alright defense. And it's actually very, very strong. Physical attack. You wouldn't think it, but Ho-Oh's got some damn muscle. Unlike Lugia. I love Lugia, but its offensive stats are both 90. That's so not fun. And it's got an awful typing. Now, Ho-Oh is absolutely crazy, because even with all the power creep of recent generations, all these crazy new overpowered legendaries, Koraidon, Miraidon, Zacian, Crowned, Eternatus, whatnot, Ho-Oh is still a fantastic Pokemon, even amongst all the other legendaries and stuff. It's literally ranked 6th place in viability. That's actually crazy. Above Zacian Crowned. Now that's a nerf to Zacian Crowned, but even then, that is still crazy. My man Ho-Oh going off. Well, not my man. Ho-Oh technically doesn't have a gender. And part of the reason it's so good is it has a fantastic ability in Regenerator, which I didn't put anywhere, but whatever. And it's also got Sacred Fire. This move's absolutely crazy. Same power as Earthquake, but also a 50% chance to burn the target. Yeah, you can just flail these around, just spam Sacred Fire. You're going to be doing something good. Alright, next. Espeon and Umbreon. Now, I get that I'm cheating. I put 2 Pokemon on the same slide. They're in I wanted to include both of them in my top 10, and I like them pretty equally. I used to be just an Espeon fan, but now I'm an Umbreon fan too. They're both amazing picks for if you're playing through the actual games of Gold and Silver / Heart Gold, Soul Silver. Now with Umbreon, you're going to have to stall your opponents out, because Umbreon is the defensive one, Espeon's the offensive one. They're both very fun. I like their designs. They're by far my favorite evolutions. I don't really like the other evolutions all that much, but Espeon and Umbreon, they kind of have this mystique to them. I like them. Look at these awesome Pokemon cards they did. These are semi-recent Pokemon cards, but they made them giant and resting on buildings. I really like that Espeon. I really like that Umbreon. Espeon's got pretty cool lore with it, that it uses its fine hairs on its body to predict the enemy's movements, to predict what they're gonna do. It's kind of like a Spidey sense. Espeon's got a bit of a Spidey sense. That's pretty dope. And weirdly enough, I find it interesting that Umbreon, despite just being a pure Dark type, is also poisonous. Well, I get that you want to make all the evolutions just one type, but you should have let it get that poison type, because Dark Poison's actually a surprisingly amazing type combination. Should have made it Dark Poison. But hey, that's why Umbreon still gets Toxic. It's actually surprisingly poisonous, I guess. Alright, next. Azumarill. I've always been a big fan of Azumarill. Now, Azumarill stocks have gone down a little bit with me, because I'm getting kind of a little bit of that overrated vibe. It's in everything. It's in everything now. Like, because it's been buffed so much. It got that fairy typing, it got huge power. But I still love him. It's a cool rabbit water thing. I don't know how else to describe it. It's cute, it's cool, it's powerful. Weirdly enough, you wouldn't think it's powerful. Look at these god-awful stats. But huge power, it buffs that attack by double. Now, you'd think, oh, that's just 50 times 2, 100 attack, that's not even that good. Well, it's actually multiplying this 218 here, if you go all the way into the attack stat, which you should. And that'd make it 436, which is more like if it had 140 something in this attack stat. Not just double of 50. Because it also doubles the EVs, whatnot, it gets complicated. But it's really good. It's a fantastic belly drum user, raising its attack all the way. And I like it's shiny. It's got that Pikachu kind of look. Now, I didn't mention this with Espeon and Umbreon, and I got to, so I'm going to go back for a second. I didn't mention, but these two are in Unite, and I actually quite like playing as both of them. I think they're both pretty fun. I think Umbreon's a very good defender. It's a very effective defender, and Espeon's a pretty fun attacker, although Umbreon is very, very annoying and counters my favorite character to play in the game. But anyways. And then also Azumarill, another Gen 2 Pokemon that has made it to Unite, and is a very fun Pokemon in that as well, although they are kind of crap in team fights. TBHAL. Alright, next up, I am a Scizor fan. I feel like if you like Gen 2 Pokemon, you gotta like Scizor. And actually, if you just like Pokemon, you gotta like Scizor. It's Scyther, which was an already cool Pokemon. Take the green bug out of here. Let's give him a cool Iron Man suit. And now he's a bug-steel combination of doom with his high attack stat, solid defenses, amazing typing. And, I know not everybody's a big fan of it, but he's the first one on the list to have a Mega. And I actually really like Scizor's Mega. It's a very good buff to him. He gets really tanky. And a nice boost to his power, little boost to his speed. It's just a little bit of a buff in all the right places for him to keep up with all the other powerful Pokemon coming out. I love Mega Scizor. Can't wait for Megas to come back. I want to use Mega Scizor again. Now, the interesting little thing about his Pokedex entry, one of my favorite Pokedex entries of him, is that he can just crush anything to bits. And I like imagining the craziest things. It says any hard object it gets a hold of, it crushes to bits. I like thinking of him grabbing Thanos' damn Infinity Glove and crushed to bits. What's she gonna do with it now? I don't know. That's kind of exaggeratory, but that's in the nature of Pokedex entries. Why not? Now, Scizor is also in Pokemon Unite. He is technically in the all-rounder class, but he's very tanky. He almost feels like a defender sometimes. And that makes him decently fun to play. I think he's alright. And so Scizor is actually the first Pokemon we've had that's not only in just one spin-off like Unite, it's also playable in Pokken Tournament. And I've heard that it's really good in Pokken Tournament, but I don't know. I haven't kept up. Maybe it got nerfed. I don't know or care. But apparently Scizor at one point at least was very overpowered. Now, I also want to mention its ability. Its ability is really good, because Scizor's main weakness for many years was that it had no moves. This Pokemon's got no strong moves. Its moves suck. Well, Technician buffs all moves with 60 power or less. Now Scizor was given even more moves and better moves, and also technicians helping out those crappy moves to become a lot better. Alright, next. My boy Heracross. I've always been a big Heracross fan, and I've only started to love him more and more. He's just got a really cool design. I love how he's just a strong beetle man. And you can get him really early in the games too. He's got a signature move in Whoa! Almost said the wrong thing there. He's got a signature move in Megahorn. Megahorn's fantastic. It's very strong, and he was basically the first good bug type. Not even basically. He was the first good bug type. And that's just awesome. He has very well-distributed stats. And I just love him. He's both cute and strong at the same time. I'm a big Heracross guy. First bug fighting type, and he was the only one for a while as well. And with his strength, he can easily throw things around 100 times his weight. And this ain't a light beetle. He's a full 120 pounds. So that's insane. He can lift around like 12,000 pounds. That is absolutely ridiculous. Now, he does have a Mega, and now I'm not pointing it out as much as with Mega Scizor, because let's be honest, look at Mega Heracross here. He looks stupid. They just didn't know how to really make his design better. He just looks inflated. I'm not a big fan of Mega Heracross's design, but look how they did his stats though. They made his attack out of the moon. He already had a solid attack with 125, strong guy. But then they made it 185? What? Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. They made him a lot bulkier, especially on the defense side. And they even took out a little bit of speed so they could increase that bulk and attack to the rate they did. Pretty crazy stuff. Alright, next, Quagsire. I love Quagsire. I use him in every playthrough of Gen 2 I do. He's got that great water ground type. He's very cute. Early in the game. Surprisingly useful. Great moves pool. And you'd think, wow, his stats are really underwhelming. But he accomplishes a lot more with those underwhelming stats than you'd think. I've seen Quagsire deal with some crazy Pokemon. So Quagsire used to be considered a useful counter against Zacian Crown. One of the most broken Pokemon of all time. And that's because it has a very unique ability. It has Unaware, which means that any stat boost an enemy Pokemon has, it could Swords Dance a million times, it could Belly Drum, Calm Mind, anything. Quagsire is just too dumb. He just doesn't even notice you have it, so therefore it doesn't exist. That's the great energy that Quagsire gives. So dumb that you're just not effective against it. It just doesn't care. It just tanks the hits. It even mentions, due to its carefree attitude, it's bumping its head onto boulders, boats. It doesn't even affect it. Doesn't matter. Now, it is interesting that Quagsire recently got basically an updated version of itself. They came out with Clodsire, which is actually similarly weak, but it's basically a special defense monster that also has Unaware. So it's actually very useful and is used commonly. Even to this day, very effective Pokemon. Now, I did want to mention one last thing. Going back to Heracross for just a second. Just because I want to mention that Mega Heracross is 140 pounds, and they say it can lift 500 times its weight. That's roughly around 70,000 pounds. That's crazy. Very strong Pokemon. Anyways. Third. Now, I know a lot of people hate this Pokemon. Oh, it's the Stall Queen. Queen of Stall. Been in Stall throughout all the generations. This Pokemon is used for its absurd tankiness to stall your opponents out. I think that's badass. I think outlasting your opponents, you know what? It's a perfectly fine way of victory. And I've always liked Blissey's design. It's a much improved version of Chansey. It's a lot frillier, and I like it. It's cute. It's a great healer. Like, it's a great Pokemon for the design of a healer. I really like Blissey. And remember when I talked about Shuckle and its polarizing stats? Well, yeah, then you got Blissey. This is very interesting. Chansey and Blissey are very weird because they're unlike a lot of other Gen 1 and 2 Pokemon. Blissey's so unbelievably min-maxed. Min-maxed to a very specific role. It has absurd, absolutely ludicrous HP, highest stat in all of Pokemon. Yeah, not a legendary has the highest stat in all of Pokemon. No, Blissey does. And a really high special defense. So it's just a complete special wall. And it's so good at it that there has been entire metagames and sets that revolved around getting through Blissey. And weirdly enough, they've introduced enough counterplay and whatnot that Blissey isn't overpowered. It's just very solid at its role. And it can be a complete crazy check to some Pokemon. And I find that interesting. It both serves as a wall in normal Pokemon battling, and then in spin-offs like Pokemon Unite, which it was actually the first Gen 2 Pokemon in Pokemon Unite, it's a great healer. Actually, it was so meta at some point that it was in almost every single match of the Pokemon Unite Championships, World Championships, its first year that it had one. Blissey was almost in every match. There's two Blisseys in just about every match. Blissey was very meta. It's a very good healer. And it's funny enough that, yeah, that's just how Blissey has been throughout the years. It's been very meta. It's Chansey and Blissey together are the only Pokemon that have been in OU every single generation. They've kissed the best tier, the best of the best, every single generation. Every single time. And also at one point, it was extremely dominant in Pokemon Go. Wow, what can Blissey not do? Take physical hits. Look at this defense. 10. Now, does it need that defense? Not particularly, because it's got great partners. Its most iconic partner is Skarmory. Came out the same generation as it. I actually quite like Skarmory as well. There's the classic Skarm-Bliss combo. That's what that's called. They called it Skarm-Bliss. And then there's Gliscor. That's called Bliscor. Oh, and then there's Blisspex. And then its most recent partner, Dondozo. These are all very physically bulky Pokemon that have commonly partnered with Blissey. Now the thing is, they're not as crazy of physical walls as Blissey is a special wall. Blissey truly does not have a match. Actually, its main competition was one slide up, the brand new Clodsire. But even then, it doesn't have the crazy bulk that Blissey does. So Blissey is still required on stall teams. Now the last thing to mention about it is that Pokedex entry. Blissey would be a great thing to have in real life, because apparently, just even taking one bite of Blissey's egg, you just become the happiest, most peaceful, amazing person ever, and it's also apparently great at healing people. We need Blissey in real hospitals. That'd be great. Alright. Second place, we got Crobat. This is a personal favorite of mine. It's not like it's some crazy competitive monster Pokemon like Blissey is. But, you know, I really like Crobat. I've used it in a lot of in-game playthroughs. Zubats are everywhere throughout the games. And you can get a Crobat pretty early because it's a friendship evolution. You can usually get it in the low 20s of levels. So that's awesome. It's very strong overall. It's got a pretty high base stat total, 535, only below like Blissey and my number one Pokemon. Well, and Ho-Oh, obviously. But Crobat, surprisingly versatile, surprisingly strong. Weirdly enough, it's a Pokemon very focused on speed, right? It's very fast. Love that. Weirdly enough, it's surprisingly bulky too. These defenses aren't bad. It'll take a hit, and it'll go first the next turn too. Gotta love it. The other thing I wanted to mention about it, very needed evolution. One of the things I absolutely love about Gen 2 is it had great new evolutions to Gen 1 Pokemon. Gen 4 kind of tried the same thing, but I think there's a lot more duds. Gen 2, it was all hits. Gotta love Gen 2 new evolutions. And look at Golbat. Golbat looks like a freak. There's a certain like appeal to that, but it was really wimpy, and it looks weird, and whatever. Golbat has a weird, freaky, massive mouth. Crobat, much needed improvement, much cooler, and it reversed the color scheme. That's badass. And also it's terrifying. It's 5'11". Oh my gosh, imagine going into a cave and seeing a massive 5'11" bat with that big of a mouth, it could bite your damn head off. Also, its dex entries are kind of boring, but like it's kind of neat that it can fly all day by like alternating what wings it's using to fly. That's kind of neat. Alright, now before we get to first place, I do have some honorable mentions. I love all of these Pokemon. Kingdra, Wobbuffet, Porygon 2, Slowking, Steelix, Lugia, and Miltank. As you can see, a decent amount of them are new evolutions. I said I love the new evolutions. And of all these Pokemon, I quite like all of them. But I will say, Kingdra has a really underrated part of it, is that it has some pretty fun dex entries. I didn't even pull up all of them. But it lives extremely deep in the ocean, where the pressure is so high that nothing else can live, just like in real life. And anytime it yawns, giant whirlpools. Anytime it moves, giant whirlpools. It even specifies in one of the dex entries, it can sink ships with its whirlpools. Like massive ships with these giant whirlpools. And apparently, just by waking up, it creates tornadoes. That's pretty badass. This is a powerful beast. And of course, Lugia is awesome. I just have a couple gripes with it. And it also has weird hand wings. Yeah, I don't know how to feel about that. But number one, this isn't that much of a hot take. A lot of people love this Pokemon. And you know what? I'll join the bandwagon because he's just so cool. I'm a T-Tar lover. I love Tyranitar. Best pseudo-legendary. One of the best Pokemon introduced of all time. I didn't even put its ability on here, but Tyranitar's got a good amount of love, so I got a little bit to say. It's got fantastic stats. I mean, it's bulky, it's powerful, and it has a great ability in Sandstream where it summons the sand, which makes it a great partner with Excadrill. It can help out a lot of Pokemon. It provides chip damage to the enemy team, and it's got this very unique typing. It's got that dark rock typing, which is actually it's the only dark rock type that exists. And that's both unique and fun, although it does have a lot of weaknesses. It summoning the sand just by existing makes it one of the best weather Pokemon of all time. Actually, when these abilities that summoned weather were introduced, it was just Kyogre, Groudon, and Tyranitar. Tyranitar is such a beast that it's with these cover art legendaries in terms of summoning weather. He's just so awesome. And the dex entries, they definitely help with him being awesome. They immediately start with, its body can't be harmed by any sort of attack. What? Ugh. My boy's just invincible. You might be able to beat him in a Pokemon battle, which isn't even guaranteed because he's good there. But you know, outside the Pokemon battles, if you're just actually scrapping with him, good luck. You can't harm him. No sort of attack. My guy's a beast. And he's going to take you down quick too, because in just one of his mighty hands, he can make the entire ground shake and make mountains crumble. They even mention in his other dex entries that he destroys entire landscapes and maps have to be redrawn. My man's giving people jobs just by how much he's destroying everything. I talked about how strong Mega Heracross was earlier. Dude, this guy can destroy a mountain with one punch. That's a lot stronger than 70,000 pounds. I'll tell you that right now. My guy's a beast. Now, he's also in Unite, and he's very fun to play. He's just very badass. This is the only reason I put this picture over here. I even have I should have brought my plushies out, because I actually have I have a Quagsire and a Tyranitar. Because those Pokemon are awesome. Whatever, I didn't bring them. But, one thing I want to mention, Tyranitar's a cool enough and badass enough Pokemon, they've tried to make sequels to him. They gave him an alternate form in Mega Tyranitar. They gave him a Paradox form most recently in Iron Thorns. And both of them look awful! Oh my gosh, Mega Tyranitar is at least good. You can see his stats over here to the left. They're actually insane. He actually has the highest base stat total of any Gen 2 Pokemon. Even higher than Ho and Lugia. But, like, look at it. It's awful. He's just growing these really dumb, big spikes out of him. The red looks worse than the blue. He just looks dumb. And Iron Thorn looks like a trash can. I don't know. That's why they're both going in the garbage. That's why I have these two arrowed straight towards the garbage. Not a big fan of them. They're awful. Now, this might have been my number one, but I gotta give it up to the secret ghost, Xatu! Yeah, Xatu's the best Pokemon. Future predicting queen. Love Xatu. Yep. Best Pokemon of all time. You gotta love Xatu. Look at it. Look at its design. It's so interesting. Look at all these different colors and whatnot. Seems very native. Very interesting. Gotta love Xatu. It's got magic bounce. Yeah.